Okay, so I'll just create a folder, call it _mod, like the wiki suggests, just so it's at the top. Okay. And I also like creating 3 other folders, just so to keep things organized. Blender imports, base prefabs, and shaders. All these are empty for now, but with these folders created, I'm going to continue with the wiki over here. So, okay. So we need to create the item content. Item content, pclib item content. And what should I name this? I'll just call it wand. And I did forget to copy a prefab, so I'm going to go to, I think it's resources. Yeah, resources, items, and then we could look for an item we want to copy, which will make it easier for us to add our custom model into. Oh, they have hands now. When I did this before, they didn't have hands. So this is interesting. I must have messed something up the first time. So I'm going to use the coconut item. So item coconut, copy this. Okay, I'll just Control C, scroll back up to _mod, and I'm going to paste it in, it should be here. Yeah, okay, base prefabs. I'll paste it in here, or actually, no, I'm going to paste it in the parent folder for now. Okay, so what's important is that the item, this script here, is visible. I think it also tells you in the tutorial, should have the item component on the, yeah, okay, so it tells you as well. I'm just going to go through this and make sure there's no dead scripts in here. If for some reason you're seeing like a bunch of dead scripts that don't do anything, just delete them. Delete those scripts if you find them anywhere, because if you try saving and you see a bunch of dead scripts, it's not going to work. The console's going to throw an error. So make sure if there's any scripts that are empty, you just click on remove content, remove component, and it should work if you try to save stuff. But it looks like we don't have to do that because everything seems to be in order here. So I'm just going to go back up to item, try to mess around with what we have. So what I'll do now is minimize this tab here. I'm just going to full screen this. And I have a Blender project with my item. It's a free-run staff that I modeled. Not very great, but you know, it's alright. You know, if for some reason you don't know what Blender is, I mean, you could use it, you could download it here to make your custom item, just to model it yourself. You could probably also find some free models on Sketchfab, for example, if you wanted to use a model that you didn't make yourself, just as a test or something, like maybe this orange or whatever. But yeah, you know, those resources are there for you. But I'll just use this model, the freerun staff I splotched together, and I'll export it as an FBX. And I mean, I already have one here, so I could use that, but just for demonstration purposes, I'll export another one. Maybe I'll export it to the desktop, just so it's easier. And just with the default stuff enabled, I'll export it as an FBX. So export. And I'll exit out of this now. Don't save. And in Blender imports, this is where I'll put it. So I'll just place it here, drag it in there. And I'll exit out of this prefab view. So we'll be in the scene view. And because this is just an FBX right now, it's not actually a prefab. I'm going to drag it in the scene Also, if your item appears broken when you drag it into the scene, make sure that in Blender you applied the scale. That way, when you export it, everything looks normal. And everything looks normal. I'll drag it back, actually. I'll go to mods and I'll go to base prefabs. And I'll drag this now in base prefabs so that we have it as a prefab now. So this is our prefab. We can delete this. I mean, you could save, doesn't matter. Nope. Control S. Oh, what? Okay, that's interesting. Untitled. Interesting. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I'll go back to this prefab here. And I'll drag in our prefab from base prefabs. I'll just position it. I assume it's 0, right? Yeah, it's just 0. And I'll scale it down from 100. I could delete the coconut. We don't need the coconut here anymore. So I'll just use this. I'll rotate it. And I'll position the arms a bit. That should be fine. Now, if your game is, for some reason, not showing the arms and you have like a dead script here, again, if you have a dead script, just, remove it. But if the arms are, for some reason, not showing, it's invisible, that's because of the failure of not having Git installed initially when setting up the project. So everything I'm doing should still work even if the arms are invisible. So, I mean, you're still fine if that happens, but what you could do is try to, set up the project again with Git installed this time properly. And, this should all be showing as it should be, but you don't really need to, but it is convenient if you do see the arms. Anyways, I'm going to go back to base prefabs because there is something that we need to do, and that is to add a mesh component. Because right now, this can't collide with anything. Okay, so I've added the mesh component. I'm also going to make it convex. Then I'll save, and that should be good. So if I go back to our item here, which I'll rename, actually. I'll rename this to, because we don't want it to be called coconuts. I'll just call it staff. So that's our staff. Okay, so the next thing that we can do is go over to the item script here and then click the UI data dropdown. And for that, I'm just going to rename the item to Fear Staff, and you'd obviously rename this to whatever your item name is, because this is what's going to pop up when you hover over it and when it's in your inventory. And the icon, you could make a custom icon for this, but before that, you'll notice that, okay, it's loading. This is blank right now. Like the texture is blank. And that's a problem because if you go into the game, then you're not gonna see anything. It's just gonna be invisible. So to fix that, I'll go to staff. Or actually, no, I'll go to, was it base prefabs? Yeah, it's base prefabs. So I'll go here, click into this. And just so it has textures that we can work with, I'm going to go to the shaders folder and I'm going to click on, I'm going to make a new folder. I'll call it textures. And, well, actually, I guess I could make a I'll make a material folder, I guess. As well. And material. Okay, so with this new material, I'll call it, what do I call it? I guess I'll call it the, what is this? Handle? Okay, I'll call it the handle. I'm just gonna texturize every part of this prefab. So first I'll texturize the handle, and for this we have to make sure that the shader that we're using is W standard. So W peak standard, was it? Where is it? Peak standard. So this here. W peak standard. So we should be using that texture, and with that enabled, we should make sure that the base texture is properly assigned. So I'm gonna actually open a folder. I'm gonna drag in my textures. Okay, so all my textures for this prefab is added in. So I'll go to, where was it? This thing? No. It's materials, base texture, and I'll type in handle because I know it's this thing, and you're not going to be able to view it, unfortunately. But as long as you know that you have it in the proper slot, which is, I mean, the base texture slot, you can't miss it, then you're good. And as long as you assign it to the proper thing, you should be fine. Because with the rip, it doesn't rip the textures, so you're not going to be able to view it. There is a way you can get around that, but it's a lot more work. But yeah, it's fine. Also, make sure that this is interactable. So this should be enabled, and that should be pretty much it. If you want it to be appear more metallic, you can do that, which I'm not going to do. But you know, you can mess around with this stuff and see what it looks like in game once you import it. But okay, so I'll just drag this onto. Well, I'll just drag it here to be more direct. So now if I click on this and I scroll down, I'll see that matte handle is assigned to the handle of my item or prefab. So in the game, it'll actually show the proper texture, but again, in the editor, it's just going to be blank still. So I'll create another material. I'll call this matte cloth. And I'll go to W standard, peak standard, and I'll select the cloth. Might have been called NURB. Anyways, okay. Cloth, this should be cloth, so I'll put this here. And for hook, new texture, or new material, matte hook, W peak standard. Hook base. Now I can drag this onto hook. If I click in here, I could see that it's using matte hook. This is using matte cloth. This is using matte handle. So they're all assigned to textures. We just can't see it in the editor. So if I save this now, and I go back to like a staff, and we could click on this again, and yeah, everything is saved. Our item is now texturized. Okay, and also just as a side note, if you want to add like shaders, for example, you could make a separate, well, you can make a new project. And for me, what I did was I made a new project, and it was this thing here. So if I open it, it's got a couple stuff here because I already messed with it a bit. But if you wanted to add like a custom shader to your object and you wanted to see what it actually looked like in the editor, you could use this as like a way to do that. And from what I've tested, using a regular shader like this thing here works. So if I did like Fresnel test, or Fresnel is what they call it, but if I did this and I opened this up, that's not supposed to happen. Okay, I think this works, right? Okay. Skip and add accounts later. Oh, that's why it wasn't working, because I didn't set this up. Okay, well that's fine. Paste this in. And anyways, I'll save this shader here and I'll exit out of this. And now it should be this thing here. So if I just right click on this and create a material out of it, it'll look like this. If I save it, you can see, it looks like I'll just call it matte for now. I could leave that here for now. And if I create a new object, if I create a sphere and attach it to this, you can see that, the shader works. It works properly, and I can edit how powerful the Fresnel is, which means if we're in game, we could also control when it's, pulsating like this. I'll show a preview of what this looks like in game, because we're not going to use this, but just as a sort of mini guide if you wanted to use your own shaders. But anyway, in the next section, we'll go over asset bundles and how to actually add your item that you've made into the game.